Bill Maher would never forget what happened next. The Oval Office's antique clock ticked ominously as four men sat around the historic dining table, Donald Trump swirling his Diet Coke, Kid Rock nursing a bourbon, Dana White looking like he'd rather be anywhere else, and Bill Maher wondering how the hell he got here. Then suddenly, let's be honest, I could take a third term if I wanted. The ice cubes in Kid Rock's glass clinked as his hand jerked. Maher's wine froze halfway to his lips. Even Dana White's phone finally went dark. For 3 heartbeats, the only sound was the hum of the White House HVAC system. Then all hell broke loose. What Trump said next about the Constitution, what Maher whispered to the Secret Service agent, and why this conversation never appeared in any official transcript, that's where this story gets dangerous. The phone call hit like a thunderbolt on a clear day, no warning, no context, just Kid Rock's unmistakable rasp cutting through the static of an ordinary evening. Bill Maher had been halfway through his second glass of Pinot Noir, the quiet hum of his LA home a stark contrast to the chaos about to unfold. "Trump wants you at the White House, private dinner, just a few of us." The words hung in the air, absurd and irresistible all at once. Maher's first instinct was to laugh. This had to be a prank, some twisted joke orchestrated by one of his comedian friends. But Kid Rock's tone carried zero irony, just a matter-of-fact bluntness that sent a jolt of adrenaline through Maher's veins. The implications were staggering. Him, a vocal, unapologetic critic of Trump, sitting across from the man himself in the most exclusive dining room in America? The media frenzy alone would be apocalyptic. His audience would revolt. His credibility, at least in the eyes of his most ardent supporters, might never recover. But beneath the self-preservation instincts, something deeper stirred. Curiosity. Not the performative kind he wielded on real time, but the raw, human itch to see behind the curtain. What if, in a world where political discourse had devolved into tribal warfare, 2 sworn enemies could actually talk? Not through tweets, not through sound bites, but face-to-face, stripped of audiences and agendas. The risk was monumental, the potential fallout catastrophic. And yet, 3 days later, Maher found himself stepping out of a black SUV onto the hallowed pavement of Pennsylvania Avenue, the weight of history pressing down as the White House loomed before him, its windows glowing like the eyes of a silent witness. Trump dropped a bombshell about running again in 2028, and Bill Maher's reaction will stun you. The first course arrived, seared scallops on a bed of saffron-infused risotto, a dish so meticulously plated it felt almost criminal to disturb. The table was a study in contrasts. Trump at the head, radiating his trademark bravado. Kid Rock, slouched in his chair, boots scuffing the leg of the antique mahogany table. Dana White, a silent observer, his gaze flickering between them like a ringside referee. The small talk had been surprisingly effortless, jabs about Hollywood, gripes about the media, even a shared laugh about the absurdity of gluten-free outrage culture. But as the wine flowed and the second course, a succulent roasted duck, was served, the gloves came off. Trump leaned forward, his fingers steepled, and lobbed the first grenade. "So, Bill, do you actually believe this country is better off now than it was 4 years ago?" The air thickened. Maher paused, his fork hovering mid-bite. This wasn't a debate stage. There were no audiences to play to, no producers in his ear. Just the question, hanging there, demanding honesty. "Depends who you ask," he replied, measuring each word. "If you're a billionaire, sure. If you're a single mom working 2 jobs, probably not." Trump's eyes gleamed, not with anger, but something closer to satisfaction. He'd baited the hook, and Maher had taken it. What followed was a back and forth so startlingly civil it bordered on surreal. Immigration, free speech, the weaponization of outrage. Then, As dessert was served, a decadent chocolate torte, Trump dropped the bomb. "You ever think I'm right about anything?" The table froze. Maher exhaled. For years, he'd built a brand on eviscerating Trump's policies, his persona, his very existence. But here, under the chandelier's glow, with no cameras rolling, the truth felt unavoidable. "Yeah," he admitted, "you weren't wrong about borders needing enforcement. Just the cruelty of it." Trump nodded, almost approvingly. Then, with the casualness of a man discussing the weather, "What if I run again in 2028? Kid Rock's whiskey. Glass clattered against the table. Dana White's eyebrows shot up. Maher's pulse spiked. This wasn't hypothetical. It wasn't a tease. It was a declaration, wrapped in a smirk, and it changed everything. The Lincoln bedroom secret that changed. Everything and why Trump took them there. The post-dinner tour began as a perfunctory gesture, a stroll through the hallowed halls, a few presidential anecdotes tossed off with practiced ease. But when Trump led them to that door, the heavy white-paneled entrance to the Lincoln bedroom, the mood shifted. The air grew dense, charged with an unspoken gravity. Inside, the room was dimly lit, the iconic bed dominating the space, its quilted spread immaculate. On the far wall, encased in glass, sat Lincoln's handwritten Gettysburg Address, its looping script a silent testament to a nation's fracture and fragile healing. Trump didn't speak at first. He simply stood there, hands in his pockets, his gaze fixed on the document. When he finally broke the silence, his voice was uncharacteristically quiet. Even the greatest presidents were hated while they were alive. The subtext was deafening. Sound familiar? Maher felt the hairs on his neck rise. This wasn't just a history lesson. It was a mirror, a provocation, a flex. The weight of the moment pressed down as Trump turned, his eyes locking onto Maher's. They called Lincoln a tyrant, a clown, a divider. A pause. Now they call him the savior of the Union. The implication was clear. History's judgment is fluid, and legacy is written by the victors. Then Maher, unable to resist, asked the question simmering in his gut. "You thinking of a third term?" Trump didn't flinch. He didn't rage. He just offered a slow, cryptic smile. "We'll see how strong the country is when we get to that bridge." It wasn't a denial. It wasn't a confirmation. It was a door left deliberately ajar. And the chill that ran down Maher's spine had nothing to do with the room's temperature. One thing Bill Maher couldn't shake after leaving the White House, the ride back to the hotel was a blur of streetlights and shadow. The hum of the engine, the only sound in the darkened SUV. Maher replayed the night in fragments, the unexpected camaraderie, the flashes of vulnerability, the undercurrent of menace, lurking beneath Trump's casual charm. The strangest part? The ordinariness of it all. No grandstanding, no performative rage. Just four men, a comedian, a rock star, a fight promoter, and the most divisive president in modern history, talking, arguing, even laughing like actual human beings. It unsettled him. For years, Maher had painted Trump as a cartoon villain, a symbol of everything wrong with America. But tonight, he'd seen the man behind the myth, the sharp wit, the unsettling charisma, the naked hunger for legacy. It didn't change Maher's politics. It didn't absolve Trump's sins, but it complicated things. In an era where tribalism demanded absolute purity, where nuance was treason and compromise was weakness, this dinner had been an act of quiet rebellion. And as Maher stared out at the sleeping city, one thought refused to leave him. What if the real divide isn't between left and right, but between those who still believe in conversation and those who've already given up? Now, we turn it over to you. Could you sit across from your ideological opposite, not to debate, not to win, but simply to listen? Drop your thoughts below. And if you believe dialogue still has power in this fractured world, share this story. Sometimes, the most radical act is daring to see the human behind the hashtag.